There is a little bit of an occupational hazard, which you can probably hear going on here, of enjoying talking to all of the people so much. So I apologise for this slight lack of quality. Oh, this is going to be fun. A typical call, I'm actually going to talk about AI skills for nonprofits, but this is applicable across anyone, any organisation using AI right now. And a typical call that I have with a customer at the moment goes something like this. Hey, Lisa, we need to do a thing with Copilot. Can you help? That's the starting point right now. This is crazy. I've never had this scenario of like, here's a technology, what can I do with it? And they don't have the first clue what to even ask for. It's not even, the whole point about now there's 101 co-pilots, but they don't even know what they're asking for, except that this is something we have to do, and there's that sense of urgency and panic and overwhelm. So what I'm going to go through here today is some use cases that are specific to nonprofits, which is an area I work very closely with. But the principles and ideas should work across all types of organisations. I want to give you a baseline understanding of some of the different types of AI that you can use, as well as some fun use cases. And then I'm going to live even more dangerously with no voice and try a live demo of GPT-4o. Has anyone seen that in action, by the way? Yep. All right. So what we're going to do here is explore 3 different scenarios. The first one is around how we can use AI to distill complex information, really help with that workload of the overwhelm of information that we all deal with. This is the one I find the most interesting, actually, augmenting creativity and planning, because I think a lot of people use these tools like Copilot and ChatGPT. They stare at a blank box. They don't know what to put in the blank box, and it goes nowhere. And there's a lot more you can do here once you start to understand the true capability of it. And then also the thing that's actually the biggest opportunity right now for any organisation that I'm seeing is around grounding AI in your context, bringing your own data into it and doing something that's very specific to you. And you can go quite far with this without having to spend a lot of money. All of these things are very practical things that you can do without a massive investment in expertise, without a massive investment in the tools, and you can get started pretty much straight away. I just want to rewind a bit before we get into the use cases and talk about the differences of the different types of AI capabilities. And this is by no means a complete list. There's 2 or 3 things that I would have added in here that aren't here that have come up in the last week or so. But where customers come to me and start with saying, hey, we need to use Copilot, others will write RFPs or write documents that are like, we need something that could do to take calls from our vulnerable clients and provide them with advice about homelessness, and also know where they are and provide them with a specific response. And it's just like, it's wild. Like it's possible, but this is not a small organisation's budget. This is not a starting point. So part of this is around what things are simple and what things are complex isn't even always clear. These are the things I'm categorising as everyday AI and everyday AI, and some of the things we're going to talk about. The productivity story is very much the Copilot from Microsoft 365 story. Let's bring that into the tools you use for productivity every single day. It's not necessarily the highest value use case. There are other ways of using AI to further the mission, to grow an organisation, to save substantial costs, but productivity is a good starting point. Generating text. I don't like starting with a blank page. Does anyone like starting with a blank page? That idea of, you don't want to kind of just hand this off and have it do it all for you, but the idea of not having to start with a blank page anymore is something that I'm really enjoying playing around with. Generating images, we've heard some jokes already about people with 7 fingers and 3 heads and things. That does happen, but some of the image generation stuff is quite fun. If you're a nonprofit on a budget and you don't want to be using stock images, there are some things there that can be really helpful as well. And brainstorming, which we're going to talk about, which is, I think, one of the most underrated, awesome things you can do, basically, with a very small lift in skilling. Intermediate, these are things that are pretty much accessible, but just kind of take it to that next level of skills. So the idea of a custom GPT where you can go in and do something like, let's create something that is specifically, for instance, to help us with writing grant applications. You can go in and give it examples of the kinds of things you've done in the past. You can give it a context or a system prompt to say, you are an expert at writing grants, you understand our organisation, you understand what we're about, and now you're giving it a prompt, and now you're asking it to do something. It's actually giving you a much better outcome than just going into the blank box and saying, help me write a grant application. You're going to get a pretty terrible result. Custom copilots, we heard Daniel talk earlier about Copilot Studio, that idea of building out a copilot to do something specific to your organisation. That can be internal facing, a lot of things around helping staff find policy documents, procedure documents and things, but also things that are outward facing. How could we use a GPT to help with driving more donations, driving more volunteers, those kinds of things as well. This is a big one here, RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is around that idea of grounding the model in your data, which we talked about a little bit earlier. And again, that's some of what we're seeing with Copilot Studio when Daniel points it to a website or we point it to SharePoint or upload documents, is that we're basically giving the model a grounding and a search in your own specific data. And then deeper into the Microsoft stack, we haven't talked a lot about customer insights here, but there are out-of-the-box models there that can help you with prediction, which churn models, and things that might look commercial but apply to a non-profit scenario just the same. A churn model is designed to help you figure out where you might lose subscriptions, but a regular donation is a subscription of kind. Customer lifetime value models could be donor lifetime value models. Let's predict who's likely to donate the most in the lifetime and start to approach them differently. So these are things you can use without a heap of investment or effort. There's a whole world of advanced things, and I'm not even beginning to scratch the surface of what's available here, but just to distinguish between those things in the first couple of categories and what's going on here with some of these types of things that just require more complexity. You're starting to do things where you need data scientists and you need experts, and there's a big difference between things that everyday users can do with AI and things with a bit of skilling that can be done, and things that start to need actual programming, scientific development of rich data sets to do. Highly personalised things, there are products you can buy that can do that, but building out your own highly personalised models is very heavy on data. Reinforcement learning is like training a puppy. The AI kind of learns from reinforcement of the right learnings, deeper learning and custom models. And even beyond this, I think a lot of people get excited about, let's train our own large language model. It's like, there might be 4 organisations in the whole world who have the resources to do that. It's not going to be an everyday thing. Small language models are starting to become an option, but realistically, some of the things that we see here around grounding it in your data, doing custom copilots can actually get you very far. And looking at the tools like Copilot Studio and some of these things can actually get you very, very far without you needing to go, don't start with a custom model. Start with using these things first and see how far you can get. Okay. Distilling complex information. So this is using the Copilot for Microsoft 365. This concept here, this is a report which is 7,799 words long, 20 pages long. And this is a report perhaps of an organisation that you're working with. It might be your organisation, but you've got all of this information to digest. What we can do with AI, this is Copilot in Word, you can do things like summarise this document, ask a question about this document, finding that information. But what I've done here is given this some context. I'm going to stand a little bit further back from the screen. I'm working with a potential major donor who's interested in preventing bullying. Please help me draft a paragraph about the impact of poverty on bullying that would help me get her to support our cause and make a donation. So I'm much more specific with my prompt here. And the response I get back, this is back to that thing of like, don't start with the blank page. I'm actually getting something here according to this document, and it's giving me a specific example. It's going to be relevant to my approach to that donor. When we talk about AI and systems with nonprofits, I particularly get pushback from the people who work in major giving and philanthropy. It's like, it's relationship management, systems can't help me, it's very personal. Of course it is. But the idea of saying, here's a 20-page document, what are you looking for? What's the angle you want? And it's helped you do that first draft. You're going to take that and do something else with it. But tell me that's not a better use of your time than having to page through the whole thing or find it. So there are always ways of doing this. And I love this idea of being able to distill something and have it pull back that answer. Now, of course, we've seen this a few times already, but we're always getting that sort of ability to find the reference in the document. So you want to fact check. This is like your enthusiastic intern. Always check its work. Has anyone used Copilot in PowerPoint? Mr. Vollmer, of course. Anyone other than... Copilot in PowerPoint can help you with creating... This is the best feature, and this actually is creating presentation from a document. So I've taken that same 20-page document, it's got images in it, create a presentation from, now it's on my SharePoint, it has to be sort of on your organisational SharePoint, put that in there and go. And this is what happens on the side panel. Here's the outline for the presentation I'm generating, boom, 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 boom. It works well if it's a particularly structured document. And then what it does is generates a 25-page slide deck that took about 20 seconds. That's a lot of work done for me. It's pulled the actual images out of the document. It's pulled things into, honestly, a little bit wordy, but still, I'd rather have that as a starting point than the blank page. It's also given me speaker notes and a reference to the original content so that I can cross-check it. This is good, right? in that productivity bucket. And this is something you don't have to customize anything to do this. This is just included in that Microsoft 365 Copilot license. If you don't like any of the images, this is one of the images that comes out of the actual presentation, but it will fill in other images. You can probably see some of them there using a Microsoft stock image library. You can actually go in and swap those out. You can give it a chat on the side and say, please swap this for a different image, and it will do that as well. So that's all about distilling complex information. Let's pull information that's relevant out of a Word document. Let's create a PowerPoint deck from a starting point. I said this is my favourite one here. This is Microsoft Copilot on the web. You can do the same thing in ChatGPT. It's the same concept of what we're doing here. But instead of going in and saying something like, has anyone done this with ChatGPT? You get a really disappointing result. Oh, please write me a proposal for this. Please write me, I'm getting a few nods. We've all done it. It's the first thing you do. Please write me a job description for a marketing manager, and it just gives this generic unleash, unlock, and all these kind of crazy words. This idea here, instead of that, is to say, let's use this for brainstorming. This is a two-way conversation. You can have a multi-turn conversation with the AI here. For a nonprofit, I need to hire a marketing manager. However, it's a popular field where people are getting paid over $150,000 and we can't pay that. Help me craft a strategy to hire a marketing manager and then help me write a job description. This is the core part of the prompt that matters here. Ask me questions one at a time until we are ready to create the job description. That kind of prompt will give you a completely different experience than, please write me a job description, because you are now engaging the AI with this two-way conversation and doing brainstorming. First question, what are the key goals and objectives? And you can even then go back and say, We haven't had a marketing manager before. Can you help suggest this? And so it works through and actually pulls this together. But this is a way of using it for the idea of augmenting what you can do, being more creative with it by saying, I'm going to use this for brainstorming. The other example I like here, I need to come up with ideas for a campaign for our non-profit organisation to help attract more Gen Z donors. This is a thing that's happening a lot as well. This generation is very socially aware and has money and want to give, but the traditional campaigns don't target them very well. Again, ask me questions. In fact, I've said as me questions, but it gets it. Ask me questions one at a time until we're ready to create the campaign. And then again, we're going through, and it's like working in a sort of consulting conversation. I'm going to live super dangerously right now and show you the next level of this. This is the GPT-4o model. Did anyone see this with OpenAI? The OpenAI demo of this, a few people? This was released a couple of weeks ago, and this is a model. Azure OpenAI and the Microsoft platform brings these models in. Daniel referred before to GPT-4. This is the next one. This is a level of conversation that's a little bit freaky. I'm going to do something I've done that I've seen work before. I have a 50-50 hit rate. But you know what? I'm pressing through with no voice here, so let's go all in. And then we're going to try something that I haven't tried before, and we'll see if it works. So this is a same experience, but this is a voice experience. Here we go, come on. Please work.
Sure thing. What's on your mind today?
Hey, can you help me out with figuring out some campaign ideas for my non-profit organisation?
Of course. What specific goals or themes do you have in mind for the campaign?
So,
are you focusing on fundraising, volunteer?
Hey, so I work for an organisation that supports homeless people. I actually want to get more Gen Z people involved in donating to our organisation, but we don't really have anyone on staff who understands how to do that.
Got it. Reaching Gen Z can be a bit different, as they respond well to authenticity, social media engagement, and causes that align with their values. Here are a few ideas.
Hey, I like the social media angle. Tell me more about that. Might have pushed it a step too far. Hey, I like the social media angle.
Social media can be incredibly effective for engaging Gen Z.
That is fascinating, isn't it? I think let's try again here. This is a service that's very high in demand right now, and it tends to cap out a little bit. Hey, I need you to do something else for me. Can I do something different for a second?
Absolutely. What do you need help with next?
So one of my major donors has just walked into the office. He has been amazing. He supported our huge event last week, and I want to say thank you, but he only speaks Dutch and I don't. Can you help me out? Can you tell him how much we appreciate him in Dutch and then help me translate?
Of course. Here's a thank you message in Dutch. Beste naam van donor. We willen u enorm bedanken voor uw ongelooflijke steun aan ons evenement vorige week. Uw bijdrage betekent veel voor ons en helpt ons om ons werk voor te zetten. We waarderen uw betrokkenheid en vrijgevigheid enorm. Hartelijk dank. In English, this means, dear donor's name, we want to...
Hey, he's standing right here. Don't translate. I'm going to let him talk to you now. I'm going to quit while I'm slightly not ahead. Thank you, Daniel, for that. Was that legitimate? Was that a decent? It was good. So, in terms of use cases for this, the idea that the model can switch languages, can brainstorm. I did this at home, chatting to it about recommending TV shows. My dog jumped up on the sofa halfway through, and my husband's like, "Daisy, get down, get down." and the thing interrupted itself. And you'll notice I was pressing a button to interrupt the conversation deliberately there. I don't want to say the guy, it's not real, but the AI in the middle of the conversation went, "Who's Daisy? Is that your pet? She sounds like," it's like, okay. So you can have a very natural conversation with it. In a real world use case, imagine actually being able to have this as a way of being more accessible to people where you might not share a common language or where you need to do those kinds of things. This is the next thing. And this is real right now. I mean, I'm legit doing a real demo. I think you can see that because you watch these polished demos from OpenAI and go, oh yeah, but oh yeah. So the third and final use case that I want to talk about here is grounding in your data. This is using a tool in the platform called AI Builder. This is something where you can use the idea of a meta prompt or a system prompt of some kind and bring it in. And this is actually a core concept. I'm showing it here, but it's something you can use in a lot of AI models to give that context, a little bit like we were talking about before with custom GPTs. You're a relationship manager working for this organization. This is your skill. This is your knowledge. This is what you know about. I want you, so all of that first paragraph there, which I'm not going to read, is giving that background context of what the AI model knows and how you want it to behave. You're reviewing a donor profile, write an email to send to the person to secure a meeting, and I've given it all of this information about my donor. This is someone we've built the profile of, and I want to make an original kind of outreach to see if I can secure a meeting. This is, again, not bad as a first draft. A whole lot better than going in and saying, please write me an email for a potential major donor with no information. We've fed it so much context. Similar thing, you're a customer service representative. You have got some feedback coming in based on the donation experience on the website. You're going to get feedback from a person's name and an experience rating. Please write an automated response. This is better than a standard automated response. You would want to go through some kind of check process rather than just sending this out. But the idea of being able to personalize at this level, this is 10 minutes work. This is not hard to do. The key things I want to leave you with out of all of this are around thinking. I'm just going to go back because that screen's a bit dark behind me there. Where I started this whole thing is that if your starting point, and I totally understand where this is coming from, is we need to do a thing with AI. We're getting left behind. It's overwhelming. We need to do a thing with Copilot. What should we do? Completely understandable. But I want you to do the thing you've always done, which is to focus on your scenario. Focus on what you're trying to achieve. What's the organization's mission? Is the need to say, how can we retain more donors? How can we attract more volunteers? How can we grow the business? Whatever that thing is. And then work back into how AI can help with that, rather than the AI for AI's sake. And I think we've heard that theme come through a few times. It's fun to play with some of these tools. I think there's just a lack of understanding of what's even possible, which leads to those kinds of conversations. But I think this core thing of start with the scenario, not the technology. Not every case is going to be a good AI case. It breaks my heart because I want to do AI projects too, but sometimes it's just not the right thing. But also, hopefully you've seen through these 3 examples and a little bit of a scenario there that you don't have to be doing something super complicated or expensive that requires a heap of resources to be able to get value out of this. You can be using this, like any of these things I've shown you, you could just switch on and start using tomorrow. You can just get that Microsoft 365 Copilot in Word and start going through and creating presentation decks or helping find that information that's complex. You can do this kind of prompting to generate automated workflows or responses and have a go with that idea of brainstorming or creating things, augmenting what you do, instead of just going in with the blank box and asking it for one thing and walking away being disappointed. I'm a couple of minutes short, but I'm going to allow myself that right now and see if we've got more time for questions. So thank you very much for bearing with me.